If you've not worked with it before, a creative brief can be a bit intimidating because it can seem like such a very quote unquote important and all inclusive document. So if you don't get it right the first time, you could be at a serious disadvantage. In addition, a creative brief can contain lots of information, so kind of keeping it all straight and organized in your mind can be a bit of a challenge. That said, if you are tempted to feel overwhelmed by all that it entails, first, know that you are not alone. Every designer begins their career and actually most likely spends a pretty good part of the beginning of it being a little intimidated or maybe very intimidated by the creative brief, even to the extent that in worst case scenarios, they don't use one at all. But here's a little pro tip. You don't have to be afraid of the creative brief. By including just 10 simple things that we're about to go over in this video, you're sure to win at your creative brief any and every time. Also, once you make a creative brief, you actually can endlessly reuse it with all of your clients and kind of just customize or tailor it as needed. So you don't have to generate it from scratch every time. It can have some recyclability to it, which is very good. Okay, so ready to make friends with the creative brief? Let's do it. So here are the top 10 topics to include in your creative brief. First one is background. Then we have overview, drivers, audience, competitors, tone, message, visuals, details, and people. Let's now go over each one individually and unpack each one just a little bit more to see what it means. So first one we're going to take a look at is background. So background is where you look to learn information about the client, about their company, about the products, about their services, about their mission, kind of as much as you can about them. The goal here is to really get to know them in a broad way. So you can kind of imagine this step to be like when you first meet someone new and kind of that whole process. So when you make a new friend, you generally ask them all sorts of questions about, what do they do? Where do they live? What do they like to do in their free time? All these sorts of questions really help you learn some of their story. So same thing is here is true for a company. As the designer, you need to know their brand story, how it comes together, and really how you can most effectively design something that's going to fit into their existing kind of personality and even potentially position them to the future. So step or topic number 2, I should say, is the overview. While background is about where you put kind of the biographical information about the company, the overview is where you begin to dial into the project description itself. Here you give the information you have about the project so that you can adequately orient yourself to what is ahead. In addition to a project overview, in the overview, be sure to note the key challenges that the client is having. Also note how you as the designer can use your own creative skills and vision to really help them solve the challenges. In both of these sections, be sure to get specific about project challenges as well as potential ways that your skills will be an asset moving into the project. So for example, what specifically is the issue that the company is having? Why is their current system or why is their current status not working? Third topic to include is that of drivers. So let's just be real here. Drivers sounds a little vague. However, what it refers to is actually what is driving the project. So drivers are the place where you list and note all the different goals and objectives for the project. So the goal here is to really record measurable objectives so that everyone is once again on the same page as to what will be considered a project success. When defining drivers, it's helpful to imagine yourself at the end of the project and then kind of look back to see what you would ideally imagine when the project is finished. So for example, how might the sales or product awareness increase upon completion of your design project? And again, you have to use your imagination. You have to put yourself at that end and kind of look back and ideally say this is, the best possible set of circumstances. In addition, what new customer base might be attracted to the project once you complete your epic design? So this sort of back to the future approach really helps you think in new ways and see your job from a new and fresh perspective. Third topic is audience. So audience is all about defining the target audience. Here you want to get as much information as you can about who might be your goal to reach. When defining your target audience, it is especially helpful to note demographic as well as psychographic details. So demographic details refer to data that is statistically socioeconomic. So this is just a super fancy way of saying that demographic detail is detail that can be measured. So this includes things like population, perhaps race, income, education level, as well as employment status and job placements. Psychographic details refer to motivations, attitudes, and opinions. Psychographic details are often the whys behind the actions. They really get to our personal goals and to our personal motivations and objectives. So because most humans tend to be very emotional, and we all are there, appealing to the why tends to be the most effective way to promote action. When you're working on the creative brief, really push yourself to explore the why for what you do in each part of the design, as this is going to be a super powerful guide to help your design overall. Okay, topic number 5 is that of competition. So competition, or defining your competitors, is looking at kind of the field that your client is in and how your client themselves might be different from others in the field. So it might feel a bit odd to spend time thinking about the competition since, let's be honest, we just want to beat the competition, right? It's actually, though, a very, very important thing to consider. So if you're not aware of the competition, a couple bad things can happen. For one, you could easily repeat something that your competition did without even knowing it. If your product looks, or in this case, your design, looks or feels like the competition, you can get into really big trouble, not only because you're going to confuse your audience, but also because you could get sued from the company whose work you resemble. So do your research here and learn all that you can about the companies and the organizations that are somewhat like or in the same lane as the company or organization that you're working with. So topic number 6 is that of tone. Tone refers to the desired feeling, personality, or approach of the project. Tone is very adjective driven. And just as a heads up, if you're like, adjective what? It's been a while since English. I get it. Adjectives are basically just descriptive words. So how would you describe the look and feel of something is basically what an adjective is. So it's easiest in this section of the creative brief to just make a long list of options. So just a long list of keywords that you feel like could describe the design, that your client feel like could describe the design. More is more in this section because when you get to designing, you can actually go to this list and really draw from this list directly to define the feel or the tone of the design itself. So next topic to consider is that of message. Message refers to the key copy points and key audience takeaways that you want the piece to convey. So for example, if you're making a brochure for a client, what exactly will be written in that brochure? Or if you're making a poster, what will the poster say as its main message, its secondary message, that sort of thing. In addition to the actual messaging, it might be really helpful to include who will create that messaging. So who's going to be writing the copy? Who's going to be taking the photos? Who's going to be making the illustrations? Is it you as the designer? Is it someone from an outside vendor or company? So it's really important to discuss these things early in the project just so that you make sure everybody is aware of the process and knows who will be doing what. So next topic to put into your creative brief is that of visuals. Visuals is, I think, perhaps the most classic item in the creative brief that you as a designer might think about. So visuals refer to the actual visuals that a client has in mind for a project. So these visuals include photography, illustrations, charts, icons, symbols, what have you. In this section of the creative brief, you get some insight into how the client sees themselves and what their particular vision entails for the project. So also, hearing their ideas about visuals can really help you check in and again, kind of get on the same page as them. So you're sure to be cohesive with their overall vision. Also included here are any style guidelines, brand guidelines, things that the client might already have in place. So it's really important to know if the client has these guidelines, as you really want to make sure that what you are designing is consistent with their overall vision and their overall brand identity. Also, if you can use their existing brand guidelines, you might already have a great starting point to go from regarding things like color scheme, font, and overall visual style. If they don't have any guidelines, your design could actually be a really great beginning for them to consider what their brand style might actually be. And they might even want to hire you to do it. So wins for everyone. So you can see here style guidelines as well as brand guidelines. Topic number 9 is details. So details are perhaps the most practical element of the creative brief. In the details zone, you need to list all project deliverables. And again, the word deliverables, just a fancy way of saying what you're actually going to make for the project. So for example, a brochure is a deliverable, a poster is a deliverable, a website is a deliverable, so you get the picture here. So it's very important to note in this section to also address the schedule and the budget as far as the details go. Though these elements are kind of not nearly as exciting as the visuals, as the tone, as the audience, they're actually very important because no matter how great a design is, a project is only as successful if it finishes on time and on budget. If you're late in delivering work, your client won't be happy and you definitely won't want to continue with them on another project. In step 9, we have details. Details are perhaps the most practical element of the creative brief. In the detail zone, you need to list all project deliverables. And basically, project deliverables, just a fancy way of saying what you will produce for the project. So, for example, A brochure is a deliverable. A poster is a deliverable. A website is deliverable. So you get the picture here. It's also really important to address the schedule and the budget in this detail section of the creative brief. Though these elements are rarely as exciting as the visuals, as the tone, as the audience, they're actually super important because no matter how cool a design is, a project is only successful if it finishes on time and on budget. If you're late in delivering work, your client will not be happy and definitely will not want to work with you again on another project. The same holds true for budget. If you do not price for something or you make a mistake in your process, you can end up costing your client a lot of money, which again would not lead to a happy client and definitely would not lead to repeat business. Final topic overview to pay attention to is this one of people. So, people refers to the actual people who will be involved in the production of the design. This includes your client, any teams they might be a part of, or even the teams that you're a part of that you'll work with alongside while making the design. It's important to put all the people or stakeholders into a creative brief so that once again you have a central spot to organize information. If you need someone's contact info on the team, you can always go back to the creative brief and find the information that you need. And so, with these 10 topics, you should hopefully be slightly less intimidated by the creative brief. Remember, the important thing is that the creative brief really is your place to connect with and learn about the clients as well as the project that you're going to begin. The creative brief gives you a structure to understand them and their business and really can, if you fill it out correctly, give you all the valuable insight you need to design something truly amazing for them. In addition, remember that the client is the one who should be able to tell you most of the information in the creative brief. They are really the experts on their business, so be sure when you are filling this out to include them as much as possible. By listening, you are sure to find and learn some really valuable information that will ensure a design win. So remember, you don't have to be afraid of the creative brief. By including the 10 things in this video in your creative brief, you are sure to win at it any and every time.